March 29th, 2022, 8:35. It was an ordinary morning in Mykolaiv. A 9-story building, the regional government headquarters, was full of employees arriving for work. 2 missiles arrived before the warning. The building collapsed. 37 people died. 34 were injured. These missiles didn't come out of nowhere. They came from a ship with a name, with a crew, with an identified commander, and that kept sailing the Black Sea for another 4 years after that. Russia thought that this ship was safe, that it had found a port far enough away for no one to reach, that the war had moved on from this chapter. It hadn't. On the night of March 1st, 2026, Ukraine sent 200 drones to the place that Russia called a refuge. And what happened that night wasn't just the biggest naval attack of the war, it was something that will change the next few months of the conflict in a way that almost no one is talking about. In this video, you'll understand the real scale of what was destroyed and why Putin has plenty of reasons to be worried. But how did Ukraine manage to get there? And why can't Russia react? And what does this attack mean for those who are funding the war? That's what we're going to answer now. The newspapers told you the score. Here, you'll understand the game. The ship in question is called Admiral Essen. It's a warship armed with 8 caliber missile cells, the same missiles that Russia uses to attack Ukrainian cities. But what makes this ship different from any other in the fleet isn't its weaponry, it's its history. Investigators from the human rights organization Truth Hounds tracked the trajectory of the missile that destroyed the building in Mykolaiv to an exact position in the Black Sea. Those coordinates match the position of the Admiral Essen at the time of the attack. The commander, Captain Alexander Smirnov, was identified as directly responsible. The investigation concluded that the attack was a war crime. After that, the Admiral Essen continued operating. It attacked Odessa in April 2022. It took part in bombings against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. Russia has never been held accountable for any of this, and there's a detail that few people know. On April 3rd, 2022, Ukraine hit the Admiral Essen with a Neptune anti-ship missile. The ship was damaged, returned to port for repairs, and continued sailing. In January 2026, a Russian military court formally charged the Ukrainian officer who had attacked the Essen, even though he was not present at the trial, and demanded $28 million in compensation. Think carefully about what this means. Russia went to court to defend a ship that had killed 30 people and demanded compensation from the one who tried to sink it. The Admiral Essen survived. It continued to be a symbol of something that deeply bothered people, the feeling that the Russian fleet did whatever it wanted without consequences. But before talking about what happened in March, you need to understand why Russia was so confident. The historical base of the Black Sea Fleet was Sevastopol in occupied Crimea. But Ukraine kept destroying ship after ship there, with drones, with missiles, with attacks that Russia said were impossible. In September 2023, an attack destroyed the fleet's own headquarters in Sevastopol. Russia made a decision to move its most valuable ships to Novorossiysk, a port in Russian territory, more than 330 kilometers from Sevastopol. Out of range of the missiles Ukraine was using at the time, protected by modern air defense systems, a refuge. In March 2024, the representative of Ukrainian military intelligence said directly, Ukraine was not going to wait. In September 2025, the spokesperson for the Ukrainian Navy was even more direct. We are going to destroy them in there, and they understand that very well. Russia heard both times and did nothing both times. But then came December of 2025, and then it became impossible to ignore. On December 14th, 2025, Ukraine did something that had never been done in the history of modern naval warfare. The Ukrainian Security Service placed an underwater drone inside the port of Novorossiysk. The drone navigated under the floating barriers and the vessels that Russia had deliberately sunk at the entrance to the port, exactly to prevent this kind of attack. The target was the B-271 Kolpino, a submarine valued at approximately $400 million. The drone arrived and exploded. Satellite images showed a 9-meter crater on the concrete pier. The submarine was more than a meter below the normal water level, a sign that it had flooded inside. The British Ministry of Defense confirmed it. The Kolpino probably could no longer sail on its own. It was the first submarine in history to be disabled by an underwater drone. Russia now knew that its ships in Novorossiysk were not safe, yet it didn't move them, and Ukraine recorded everything it had learned from that attack. On the night of March 1st, 2026, 200 drones, flying through the air and sailing through the sea at the same time, headed towards Novorossiysk. A Telegram channel that monitors Russian military communications reported that the air defense units registered the arrival of the horde, more than 200 units. And then something unusual happened. The Russian Ministry of Defense stayed silent. Russia has a habit of issuing statements every time Ukraine attacks, saying how many drones were shot down, that the attack failed, that the damage was minimal. This time, nothing. No statement, no official version. The silence was the confirmation of everything. 5 warships were hit that night, among them the Admiral Essen. Satellite images confirmed impacts on the central part of the ship. A fire that lasted 18 hours destroyed the combat electronic systems and targeting radars. The Ukrainian Security Service stated that the ship suffered serious damage that compromises its ability to launch Kaliber missiles. The ship that killed 37 civilians in Mykolaiv was disabled by a drone that costs less than a single one of the missiles it carried. But the 5 ships are just the beginning of the story. Have you ever heard of the Sheskaris oil terminal? Probably not. Most don't explain what it is, but understanding Sheskaris is understanding why this attack will hurt Russia for much longer than any ship loss. Sheskaris is where approximately 20% of all the oil Russia sells to the world passes through. Combined with the terminal next to it, the complex handles 2 million barrels of oil per day, about 2% of all the oil available on the planet. That's a lot. On the night of March 1st, drones destroyed 6 of the 7 oil loading points at the terminal. 6 out of 7. 90%. With only 1 point operating, the terminal was practically at a standstill. Russia lost about 500,000 barrels per day for approximately 7 days. At market prices, this represents between $150 and $175 million in lost revenue, just from oil. As soon as the news reached the market, the price of a barrel worldwide went up by 2%. Each day that Sheskaris is out of operation costs Russia approximately $25 million. And it wasn't the first attack. In November 2025, Ukraine had already hit the terminal and temporarily shut down the entire complex. On November 29th, a naval drone destroyed a loading point at sea on the Caspian pipeline, the route through which 80% of Kazakhstan's exported oil passes. Kazakhstan estimated potential losses of $1 billion per month if the disruptions continued. The attacks in Sheskharis are not attacks on an oil terminal. They are direct attacks on the money that funds the war. And the problem goes beyond the lost revenue. Imagine a government that planned the whole year counting on a salary, and that salary was cut almost in half. That's basically what's happening with Russia. In 2025, Russia's revenue from oil and gas fell by almost 24% compared to the previous year. The deficit in the government's accounts was the largest since 1996. The Kremlin's financial reserve, the money set aside to cover war expenses, dropped from $113 billion before the invasion to $52 billion in January 2026. In December 2025, Russian oil fell to $34 per barrel in Novorossiysk. The Russian government had planned the 2026 budget, counting on $59 per barrel. The difference between the two numbers is money that simply doesn't exist, and war spending consumes 38% of everything the government collects. But there is something even more serious, which explains why Russia can't simply replace what it is losing. And this is the detail that most people don't know, but it changes everything. Before we continue, think for a second. If you were Russia and you were losing ships in the Black Sea, what would you do? You'd get reinforcements from another fleet, right? It seems obvious. The problem is that there's a document signed in 1936. Kept in a file in Switzerland, that makes this completely impossible. While the whole world was looking at the destroyed ships, there was this piece of the puzzle that almost no one mentioned. A 90-year-old treaty that turned the Black Sea into a dead-end trap for Russia. Imagine you're in a game where every piece you lose disappears forever. You can't ask for a new piece. You can't start over. You play with what you have until it's all gone. That's exactly what's happening with the Black Sea Fleet. In February 2022, Turkey activated an international law called the Montreux Convention, a treaty signed in 1936 that controls the passage of warships through the Bosphorus Strait, the water corridor that connects the Black Sea to the rest of the world. This law states that warships from countries in conflict cannot pass through the strait during a war. In practice, this means the following. Any Russian ship destroyed in the Black Sea can't be replaced. Russia cannot bring reinforcements from its other fleets. Each lost ship is lost forever, as long as the war lasts. By the end of February 2026, at least 25 Russian ships had been destroyed or put out of action, a third of the entire fleet. Now, add 5 more. The Black Sea has become a trap. What goes in doesn't come out. What is destroyed is not replaced. And then, Russia tried an alternative, to use an internal channel that connects another sea to the Black Sea. But this channel is too shallow, only 4.5 meters deep. Small ships can get through, submarines, larger warships, anything that really mattered militarily can't pass. There is no real solution. Besides the ships and the terminal, Ukrainian drones destroyed 3 air defense systems that night, including parts of the S-400, the most advanced anti-drone and anti-missile system that Russia has. Each destroyed system opened up a space in the sky that was previously protected, a path that the next drones can use. The March attack was not only the largest of the war, it was also a preparation for those that are to come. And there's a detail about how this attack was possible that almost no one mentioned. On January 30th, 2026, a month before the attack, 2 Western spy planes flew over the Black Sea. A British plane specialized in intercepting radar signals and military communications, and an American plane circling directly over the port of Novorossiysk. These planes do exactly what you would need to do before planning an attack with 200 drones. Find every enemy radar, identify every weak point, understand where the defenses are. In October 2025, the Trump administration had authorized the sharing of classified information with Ukraine for long-range attacks against Russian energy infrastructure. In March 2026, this joint work was already in full operation. Russia knows about this, but knowing didn't prevent the attack. Let's take stock of what Ukraine destroyed on that single night. Because when you add it all up, the number is hard to believe. 5 warships, including the one responsible for the death of 37 civilians in Mykolaiv. 6 of the 7 loading points at the terminal, which handles 20% of Russian oil, 3 air defense systems. And now there is a simple calculation that sums up the imbalance of this war better than any explanation. A Ukrainian drone costs between $250,000 and $300,000. A single caliber missile, the missile that Admiral Essen used to attack cities, costs about $6.5 million. The Admiral Essen was disabled by something that costs less than a single one of the missiles it carried. That's the imbalance that Russia can't solve. In May 2022, Ukraine's naval drone program started with 4 engineers and a modified fishing boat. In March 2026, it carried out the largest coordinated attack of the war. And now we return to the beginning of this story, Mykolaiv. March 29th, 2022. A 9-story building, 37 people who came to work that morning and didn't return home. The ship that launched those missiles went unpunished for 4 years, kept sailing, kept firing. Russia even went to court to defend it. On the night of March 1st, 2026, a drone that cost less than a single one of the missiles it carried reached it. And this time, the Admiral Essen did not return to port. 4 years is the time it takes for some bills to come due. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that Russia still has a way to reverse what's happening in the Black Sea? Or is the naval war already decided? Comment below, I want to know what you think. If this video helped you see the real magnitude of what happened, share it with someone who also deserves to know the whole story, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. See you next time.